Welcome back to Let's Talk Music. This is episode 2. It'll be a 2-part episode featuring someone I'm super excited to feature on this podcast series. Welcome Dr. Wonki Lee. Dr. Wonki Lee specializes in saxophone and the performing arts, and super excited to hear what he has to say and answer some of my questions. Mm-hmm. So welcome Dr. Wonki Lee. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm super excited. So this podcast will be kind of more some of the basic stuff, I guess. Kind of just like I want to hear where you're from, you growing up, and how you came to music and how you came to saxophone specifically.
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Japan. I was born, raised in Tokyo, and my parents are Korean. They got married in Korea, but my father was in love with Japanese culture, so he went to study in a college in Japan. My mother followed, and they settled in Japan, and I was born. So my passport is Korean. My cultural background is Japanese, so my first language is Japanese. I am currently a permanent resident in America, but also a permanent resident in Japan. So I have like 3 backgrounds, right? Like Korea, Japan, and America. Now, I started playing saxophone in middle school in Japan. And the reason I started playing saxophone wasn't really kind of intentional. So the school that I went to in the middle school, it was a private middle school, only for boys, that was closer to my home. And I was hoping that they have a good baseball team there. I was a baseball player growing up.
You were a baseball player?
Yeah, I was a catcher.
I did not see that coming.
A really good one, actually. Really serious. So, I wanted to continue playing the baseball in a serious way. But unfortunately, the school that I went to, their baseball team really sucked. Like, it wasn't good at all. So I was discouraged. And I was looking for something to do, and there was one concert that the wind ensemble of the school was doing at the time. So my friend invited me, and I was like, okay, let's go together. And there I heard a performance of saxophone and a band. Now, saxophonist was a high school student who was taking lessons professionally, and he was going to go to a conservatory after that. And when I heard his performance, it just shocked me. I'm like, it was a thunderstruck into my bag. And from that moment, I knew I had to do it. I had to play the instrument. So right after the concert, I went to that high school student, and I want to play this instrument. And he introduced me his teacher, at the time. And I was able to take lessons from very beginning. So that was really great to have a very strong foundation. And that's how I started playing saxophone in a band, actually, but taking lessons professionally from early on.
So you only started actually playing saxophone in high school?
Middle school. I was 13 years old.
13 years old.
Middle school, yeah.
And then you started getting lessons when you were?
Middle school.
Still middle school.
Right there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So back to your Japanese and Korean background. Do you speak Japanese and Korean then? Do you speak both?
So my Japanese is the best. That's my mother tongue. Now Korean, I kind of grew up listening to Korean, but I wasn't really, studying hard. So it took a long time for me to get better. So Korean for me is a third language. English is so much better than Korean. Now Korean got better when I met my wife.
Do you speak Korean at home then?
Yeah, so I speak Korean with my wife most of the time, and it got better. Yeah, but it's not perfect.
So you speak 3 languages then?
Almost.
Almost.
I'm not gonna say perfectly, but almost. I could go to Korea and live, but I don't think I can work because my Korean is not perfect. So did you go to university or anything like that for a saxophone? Yeah. So what happened after middle school in Japan? Now, my parents believed that because I was Korean in Japan, I shouldn't just stay in Japan. still there is a certain discrimination, between two countries, and they're very sensitive about that. So they thought it's a good idea for me to go to States and study, not for music, but to study. Okay, learn the English, study, and get a degree. So that would be better if I were to come back to Japan. I would have a better chance. That's what they thought. But I wanted to play saxophone seriously. Already at that point, I was determined I'm going to be a saxophonist.
So they weren't going to let you go. They weren't going to let you go to America and universities to study saxophone like any music?
That wasn't their intention at all. They allowed me to play saxophone because they thought, me focusing on music allows me to kind of not to go off track and do something crazy or something bad, But also they really insisted I have to study really hard, like typical Asian parents. So to get my first instrument, I have to actually did so well for the school's exam that I need to get the number one placement for the test.
You had to get number one.
Number one in school.
Out of how many students?
Like 200 students. So I studied like mad, right, to get my instrument and to be able to play the music. But all in all, so, it was my parents' push for me to study in America. Now, I really wanted to study in Japan. But the deal was, at the end of the day, my parents and I decided I'm going to study in New York, but I'm going to keep taking lessons, saxophone lessons. So I found a teacher at Manhattan School of Music in New York, whose name is Paul Cohen, Dr. Paul Cohen. He's still there. And that's how I started my music studies at the Manhattan School of Music pre-college. Then I went to college for the Manhattan School of Music, master's and doctorate, everything. I got the degree right there. So
awesome. You would consider yourself a professional musician, yeah?
Hope so. Yes.
What were some of the biggest, some of the hardest things you had to overcome to become a professional musician?
That's interesting. Like, how do we define professionalism? I mean, obviously, it's a very, very competitive field. To be professional, you actually have to not only to get an education, but you also have to do competitions, right? And nationally, internationally. And you need to actually deliver the result. You need to win, hopefully, some of that. Okay? Concertize. Be known to the public or in the field of saxophone. And then hopefully the people like you, right? And start building your career. So, but it's not really only about performance, right? For me, it was always important. I wanted to balance teaching and performance. So I was always aiming to become a professor of saxophone. Okay. And right now I'm teaching at Montana State University as assistant teaching professor, which is also kind of great. That's exactly what I wanted. But at the same time, I still perform. I still record. I still do many other projects as a saxophonist. So I don't know. All in all, right now I'm able to make a living doing what I love to do, which is saxophone related. So that hopefully it would qualify me as a professional. But I also know there are many other colleagues of mine and friends who got a degree, in performance, saxophone performance, and they're amazing musicians capable of doing as equal or as well as I do, but they chose different paths of doing other work. Okay, so it's kind of ambiguous of what professional saxophone or professional musician is, but definitely the most tough part is competitiveness of the field, that you actually need to really work hard to be, I always say aim to become number one, then hopefully you become one, but the chances that you become two or become third, and that's okay, but it's really aiming to be the top in whatever that means, okay, so that you'll be known in the field. I think that's the most difficult part.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I told you this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about getting a what's it called? A minor in film and photography.
Highly recommended.
Did you ever consider getting, or do you have a minor? Do you have a minor in something?
No, I don't have any minor.
Did you ever consider it?
No, actually never. Yeah. When I was a student, I never considered it, because I was in conservatory. I wasn't in university system. Yeah, so only thing I can do in a conservatory is music, right? Yeah, so I never considered anything. Now, after I grew up out of school, yes, I was like, it would be nice if I took business, if I took finance. But during the pandemic, that's when I decided that I really want to take cinematography. I want to learn how to use cameras and how to make music videos my own. Yeah, and that was well worth it, worth the money. Mm-hmm.
How did you end up teaching at Montana State? You taught at at another university in New York.
So now, yes and no. So when I was in New York City, when I was completing a doctorate, and around the same time, I was start teaching at the pre-college program at the Manhattan School of Music. However, that's only a part-time work. So I was actually working as a full-time worker at Manhattan School of Music, not as a teacher, but as an administrator for the library. I was working in the library full-time while I was teaching pre-college program on Saturday, and I also had my private saxophone studio that I was teaching local students in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So that was my main source of income. Now, when I was working at the library, okay, I was always applying for college teaching positions, but I was glancing through, I think it was a Glassdoor.com, and the position of Montana State as assistant teaching saxophone professor popped up. So I'm like, that's interesting. I never been to Montana State. I don't know where Montana was or know what Bozeman was like. No clue, but I had a material ready to just send it out. So that's exactly what I did. Not expecting much, actually. My wife will tell you, I was like, Montana State, I'll just send my material. And she didn't think anything special about it. I didn't have any expectations. But after a week or so, I got an email from Dr. Bolte that they want to set up. Actually, not from Dr. Bolte, it was Dr. Stark. Yeah, that we want to set up the interview. And we had one interview, and then we had another interview. And I think we had one more interview, 3 interviews. And then Dr. Bolte offered the position. So I took it. And that's why I'm here.
So when you sent your material out, were you expecting the idea that you wanted to take the job, the position?
That's a good question. Yes, but not sure at the time.
It's kind of just like we'll see see where this goes.
So yes, I was always looking for college teaching positions, and I was applying a lot of different schools. Okay, but sometimes I get into shortlisted, meaning I interviewed, but sometimes, most of the time, not even interview. I wasn't shortlisted. Okay, and it's that competitive to get a college teaching position too in the music industry. So, but I was also doing okay in New York with my private studio. Financially speaking, it was going well. And all in all, when I was applying for Montana State, part of me really didn't know anything about this school because I've never been here. I don't know anybody from Montana State. So I didn't know what to expect. But also because I haven't been, got hired to become a professor yet, I had no clue, of what kind of work that's going to be included assistant teaching professorship. I had a vague idea, but I wasn't sure. So it wasn't like, oh, I really need to get this position in this school. It wasn't like that. It was like, opportunity rise, so I'll try and see what happens.
Something funny with Dr. Stark was because we were shooting a podcast too here before, but there was something that got wrong with the audio, so we're having to reschedule a new video. But he was we were talking about it, and he was like, yeah, I remember looking at Wonki's criteria and things like that, and when we offered him the job, everyone was like, okay, we got to find another person because there's no way this dude is going to accept. Were you aware of that?
I remember, he told me after I took the position. And it is true, I contemplated actually quite a bit, when I got the offer. Partially because of the salary range. It meant a significant drop from what I was making actually in New York. Okay. Yes, New York is expensive. Montana is cheaper than New York, but Bozeman, it's crazy. Not much difference in there. But I also knew deep in my heart, this is exactly what I wanted to do, to become a professor of saxophone.
So that was the trade-off that you're looking for, despite
like
the
I was
salary
always
difference.
looking for, this was a dream job in a way, right? And my wife also knew, when I got the phone call, somehow she knew, like she had like a good sense. Like after the first interview, she felt like we're going. Yeah. Now, she had many friends in New York also, and, her heart didn't really want to move, but she knew in her head that we need to actually move to Bozeman. And that was the same for me. Like I knew, I had to go. And I actually called my mentors who are professors and asked them, like, should I take this position or not? Like, what do you think? And they all say, I have to. No matter what. It doesn't matter what they offer, you have to take this job. So I was encouraged. And one of the other curveball was, there was no campus interview. It was only the Zoom interview. Okay. So when Dr. Volti offered me the job, I didn't know this place. I never seen it. I never been to Bozeman. So that's another curveball, right? And I have to make a decision to move my family with 2 kids. Okay. But thankfully, my wife also, trusted me and knew that we had to move and take the chance. So that's what we did exactly. Yeah.
And it's been worth it?
Absolutely, yes. I love it so much. Seriously, it's like one of the best decisions ever in my lifetime. And, probably one of the riskiest decisions at the time because of amount of certainty that was included in the decision making. But this is always what I wanted to do. And, first year was, of course, rough for our family to adjust to the new environment. But all in all, we are all very happy being here. Yeah. Honestly, though, part of me thinks you could get the same education cheaper online.
So just doing it because I'm going to be doing a 5th year. At least that's what I plan on doing for now. Just because, and this is one thing that I think we'll also talk about in the second part of this podcast, is the idea of moving too quickly, or how you move through a degree and its program. So like the music technology degree program here is great. I love it. Montana State, it's fantastic. But I do feel like a lot of the critical and vital criteria that we need to learn in order to get out into the field and, make money, go beyond what we dream of, like for a future career, I feel like it gets a little crammed, a little crushed, and a little rushed. So the reason why I've decided to take a 5th year Also because I don't have enough concert attendance. But the main reason is because not necessarily I think I learn at a slower rate, but I learn to appreciate and embody things that I'm taught a lot more at a slower pace than other people may do. Just because it's the idea of you're studying for a test, right? And you study for it super well. You take the test and you forget about all of that again, right? So, but luckily, the music tech program, what I think they do a great job of is staying away from tests like that, essays, things like that. They do a lot better job of, the creative works of getting hands-on experience, working with programs, and nothing that's like, oh, this is real homework. I have to do this. This is a pain, things like that. So that'll be kind of some of the things I think we'll like to talk about in the second episode, which I'm super excited for too. So how long have you been playing saxophone now?
I started when I was 13, in middle school.
Right, and how old are you now?
I'll be 35 this year, so 22 years.
22 years.
Yeah.
And you don't plan on ever stopping?
No, not until my body can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully I'll keep playing until 65.
You think your body will stop performing at 65?
I think it's not so much of body, but how much hour do you want to put every day into saxophone, right? In order to keep up and also improve, you need to keep on practicing. Yeah, it's a question of how much do you want to do that.
So what is you probably have multiple goals right now, but what is maybe the main thing that you're striving for now? Because recently you're on a 10-year track now for the, what is the title of the position?
So assistant teaching professor to assistant professor.
Assistant professor.
Here at Montana State, yeah.
Right. So on that 10-year track, so what are your goals then? I guess what are your main goals that you're chasing now?
I mean, this is really an exciting opportunity because, right now, like, it doesn't really change what I do dramatically, but at least the amount of hours that I can put into things that I wanted to do will be changed. So I could spend more time doing, producing and thinking about the project than actually teaching. That makes sense. Right now, I need to teach a large course, not for saxophone, but I'm teaching American popular music, which means 3 times a week. And to prepare and to teach, that's a lot of work. Now, that time I could actually spend for practice or planning for the project or go for a concert. I'm doing master classes. Having said that, right now I'm really excited. I'm implementing a few different projects, and the big one that I'm working on right now is commissioning a new saxophone concerto for American composer Joel Love, who's in Texas, Houston right now. And we actually performed his alto saxophone concerto, Solas, last year with wind ensemble here. And, after that performance, it was really a special performance personally. And I was also impressed by Montana State University's wind ensemble, that they actually play really well. So it got me thinking, I want to commission new work. And soprano saxophone concerto has been kind of an idea in my head. So I decided to just ask him. I just sent him a Facebook message. Are you interested in writing a soprano saxophone concerto? And he was really excited, and he graciously accepted the idea. So I'm opening up a consortium, meaning I'm going to ask very soon different saxophone professors in America and different schools to bring the money together for the composer and pay him so he can write this concerto. And Montana State, we're going to premiere it here.
With the Wind Symphony.
Wind Symphony. Yeah. So that's like really an exciting project. Not only it's going to be a wonderful piece of music, but to be able to do that here and to do the world premiere in Bozeman, Montana, excites me quite a bit. Another upcoming project is going to be releasing a new CD. It's called American Sonatas. No, Masterworks for Saxophone. Okay, I changed the title. Masterworks for Saxophone. And I'm going to record 3 saxophone sonatas by American composer. One by David Maslanka, and William Albright, and Robert Muczynski. And I'm working with wonderful pianist from CU Boulder, whose name is Ershwin Lee. We actually brought him last semester as a guest. Remember? Ershwin, the pianist, Taiwanese pianist from CU Boulder. Anyway, so I'm working with him, and we're going to record at the end of June. And this record will be produced by this label in London, in England, actually, who specialize releasing recordings for saxophone and clarinet. So
they specialize in recordings for saxophone and
clarinet, yeah. And so that's also coming up. Okay, hopefully it's going to release in September or October. Okay, and another project is to take the Wind Symphony to Japan, to the Japanese concert, working with another college in Japan that I'm currently in touch with. So what we're gonna have a guest next semester from Japan, from that school, saxophone professor whose name is Masato Kumoi, and he champions the music of David Maslanka and worked closely with Maslanka himself. So we're gonna have him do a master class and also a concert with the Wind Symphony. Then a year later, our plan is to bring the band back to Japan and perform with their band together for the concert, for the cultural exchange. And all in all these projects that I'm planting the seed right now is super exciting. So,
that is very exciting.
So I
am taking an online course right now to learn Japanese because I've always wanted to go to Japan.
Oh, good.
And so when you brought that up, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, I guess I'll be going to Japan twice because I want to. One, I want to really experience the culture, and then one, I want to go there, in some sort of aspect to experience music. So,
yeah,
I'd be super excited.
So stay around,
Yeah. I guess I'll just never. I'll never graduate, I guess.
No, it's a strange balance, I know. But I want to graduate. I want to get out of here as soon as possible, and go out to the field, and then create, produce. That's what you need to do. Yeah.
One thing that I also really want this podcast to really focus around is future musicians, people that want to go, because I feel like we're still in a generation that, like, for me, for example, I'm from a small town of Cody, Wyoming. I graduated with 102 people in my senior class. The arts were there wasn't very much to offer in the arts, and no one really valued it either. And so the thing that I feel like a lot of people get told, especially in the younger ages, is like it's not realistic to think that you can be a musician and make a living off of being a musician in music, And so I guess I'll leave it open-ended, not even as a question. But if I did have a question for this, it would be, what are your thoughts about, uprising future artists and musicians, people that want to do like what you're doing right now, which, it's obviously very difficult, but, what does it take and, what do you think they need to hear?
I mean, all these comments about how difficult it is to make a living as a musician is true. That's a reality. Having said that, the music industry, music business is so diverse and huge, okay? So there are so many things you can do with music degrees, okay? Oftentimes, we just think about the performance, right? At the beginning, that's the only thing I want to play the instrument. But if you think about it, all these non-profit organizations, okay, arts foundations, orchestras, music schools, they need somebody to run it. Okay, they need somebody who knows the music and who loves the music to run it and support it. Okay, and how many of them are there? So music degree is actually necessary for those positions too. So it's not only the performance, and then on top of the music technology, think about the recording industry, think about what's going on in YouTube, all that. Like music is everywhere. You need somebody who understands, who can produce all these things. So all in all, because industry is so big, if you're open to it, and if you're not limiting yourself only for the performance, like possibilities are unending. Okay. And having said that, you could actually have a quite successful career in many ways. Going back to the performance though, that's where it gets really complicated. Because to become a performer, again, you have to prove that you are number one in a certain way. The reason for that, is when the presenter is trying to hire you as a soloist, they need a publicity to sell the tickets, right? You need to be famous in a way, from presenter's point of view, right? We want to have this soloist. The only reason that they want to have this soloist is to gain more attention so they could sell music. And hopefully they could bring more audience who's going to subscribe to their series or for their ensemble. So to become that is you have to win competitions, right? And you have to be great at your instrument. You have to basically dedicate every awakened hour for the perfecting your skills and musicianship. And that's what I tell my students who wants to go to performance, and I tell them, like, is that the only thing are you thinking? Like, every awakening moment, do you just want to practice and play music? If that's yes, you have a possibility. If that's no, okay, but you love music, you have different direction. You could still perform, okay, but probably that's not going to be your main source of activity or main source of income, okay? You diversify your activities, and that's totally okay, okay? So it's not that simple. And chances are, as you're starting off, you may not know what you want. Okay, so going to the school of music, like this place, and putting yourself in an environment with your friends and peers is a great opportunity to find out actually what you want or what's possible. Because you never know what kind of things that you are interested into. So those are the things that I would just suggest to any uprising students who are interested in music, and also for the parents too. And it's very healthy for parents to say, well, I'm nervous that my children, my son, my daughter is going for the music because they're not going to make living after school, and that's simply not true.
So with that being said, then do you think there's a healthy mix of taking that leap of faith to say become the best, or I guess to become a musician that can live off of it?
So you mean just by performance?
I guess I guess both aspects. Do you think there's a healthy mix of taking a risk, to go the route of the musician or performer?
I would say, any direction can be risky, in any field. I mean, you could pick any other field, like lawyers these days. If you go to law school, and that field is now saturated, so it's much more competitive than the past. We thought it's going to be a kind of safe way to go to law school and become a lawyer. That may not be the case anymore. Okay, that could be a risky thing to do. Or, not in America, but in other countries, like my home country in South Korea, there are too many doctors right now, and they, after getting the degree in medicine, they can't find a job. So any field could be risky. I think for me, the riskiest thing you can do is not to pursue what you truly love to do. That would be the riskiest thing. Because if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like you're working hard. If it doesn't feel like working hard, chances are you're going to get better faster, and you're going to be good at it, and it's stress-free. So you actually excel than other people. So chances are you're actually going to be a better at the work, at the job, than the other people, because you just love it, right? So in a way, that's a safer way to go about the life from my perspective than, let's say, okay, it's better to become X, Y, and Z because it's safer. But in the long run, that may be a riskiest thing you can do it, not taking a chance to pursue what you love to do. So that's how I kind of look at my life. And, people thought going for music was ridiculous. And in that becoming a classical saxophonist, people were like, what are you thinking? I received, numerous comments from my friends and families. Don't even think about it. You're going to have a hard life. And it's right. They're right in a certain way. But I had no question. This is the only thing I wanted to do. Nothing else. So I just kept going and pursued it. And that's why I'm here.
That's wonderful. I mean, I don't have any more questions, and I honestly, I don't want to say anything more because I don't want it to bleed into some of the stuff I want to talk about for the episode 2. Okay. So we could all probably honestly end a little bit early. Yeah. But thank you for coming on. Yeah. I'm super stoked for this part 2. For those of you watching this video, please make sure that you subscribe and hit that bell notification. That way you stay tuned for episode 2. And if you're new, like always, please subscribe. Any and all support is always appreciated. Dr. Wonki Lee, thank you for coming on the show with me and talking. And thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. It's fun talking to you.